So I'm really excited to welcome to What the Woman today, Jamie Valvano. Jamie is the daughter of the legendary late Jim Valvano, who was the founder of the V Foundation. In collaboration with ESPN, I was watching his speech this morning. Jamie inherited the BRCA2 genetic mutation that led to her breast cancer diagnosis, but thanks to the cancer research that her father fought so passionately for when he founded the V Foundation, Jamie celebrates 20 years cancer-free this year. I want to hear about all of this. I'll tell you, Jamie, I have been really glad to see us having a conversation about Mother's and Father's Day. I feel traditionally it was always everybody was just supposed to celebrate it, but I like that in the past couple years, the conversation has become more inclusive to say, look, these holidays do not feel like celebrations for everyone. They're challenging in some ways. How do you respond to that?
Oh, absolutely. I think as a parent, even one of my sons lives across the
Yeah.
world, and so I don't get to see him. And so on special holidays, I certainly miss him. But I think my family, through the V Foundation and all the work that we do, we're very familiar with celebrating my dad's
Yeah.
legacy. So it's not a sad day for me per se, but it's almost another day to recognize the impact that my dad has had not only in my life, but on the lives of so
So
many.
many. I mean, is it 32 years now that he's been gone? I know my team at Reader's Digest, every chance that we get where it fits into our content, we look for opportunities to interview the spokespeople who, on behalf of the V Foundation, and I said, my brother, I mean, I grew up in a very, very big sports family. I realized this morning, I'm like, we're both from Italian families and we are very traditional in the sense that like the boys are over here and the girls are over here, and a very big extended family who loves sports. And I texted my brother this morning. He's in his early 40s. And I said, would you recognize the name Jim Valvano if without Googling it? He was like, oh my gosh, Chrissy, yes, you're dead. I mean, there's that speech from the 1993 ESPYs, which is that the kind of guy he was?
Oh, absolutely. What you saw is exactly how he was at home from the get-go, this competitive spirit. I mean, I hear stories that his brothers tell, and he had this desire to win. And of course, sports was just the focus of his dad. Rocco was a coach, and at one time, both of his brothers have been basketball coaches. So it was just in their blood. And at home, he would make everything a game. I remember my sisters and I just walking down the sidewalk with him, and he would say, okay, let's line up and see who can jump the farthest. This spirit, this energy that he had to just make every day a celebration. And I am so thankful for that, because nobody knew that his life was going to be shortened. I'm older than he was by a lot when he passed. And so that really has stuck with me. That's a lesson that I've learned to really do what you're passionate about, to find your purpose, be enthusiastic. And although I did not inherit any of his athletic ability, nothing, I can't even dribble a basketball, but I still remember the lessons that he taught me on the court and how amazing it was to watch him coach. Because if you've ever watched someone who is, born to do what they're doing, whether it's singing, dancing, whatever, it's just so passionate to see that and to see how focused he was on his team and just that competitive spirit. So that was him 100% of the time. He didn't have an off button.
And so in that speech too, he mentioned his three daughters. I always love when a dude's dude gets like all girls,
Yes.
So are you the middle? Cause the way he listed you, I think he listed you all in birth order. That's so sweet. How old were you, if I can ask, Jamie, when he passed?
So I was just freshman year in college. I was 20 years old when he was diagnosed. And I left school and spent the year with him traveling and going to ESPN and as he was doing games or going to his treatment. So although it was a challenging time, it was really precious. I'm so glad that I had that time with him because at 20, you take for granted your parents are going to be there
Yeah.
forever. And so I was into college and doing my own thing and never imagined that this is kind of what was going to happen to my dad.
Remind me I know this, and again, the team has covered it. What type of cancer did he have?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. A lot of people say he had bone cancer, but actually he had something called adenocarcinoma, which starts in a gland. It's a glandular cancer. But what was interesting about his was he didn't have a tumor anywhere. By the time they found it, it had spread everywhere. It was already in his bones and where he was having pain walking. And that's why he went to the doctor. That they didn't even know where the primary source was. So it was kind of just guesswork with his treatment.
I always feel like it's extra tough when this individual was such a good person. And obviously, not everybody is a legendary coach and sports broadcaster. But I mean, if people, I'm thinking of family, friends, and it's just like, why does God take the best ones so young? That's so hard. What do you remember most about him as your dad?
So what's interesting, I love to share this because it is such a paradox of who he was. So my dad was an English major and he loved to read. He was just read
Amazing.
all the
Yeah.
time. One summer he read all of the plays of Shakespeare again, and he
Wow.
would go around and quote them and we would look at him and roll our eyes like, I don't even know what you're saying. But so poetry was a particular just love that he had, and E.E. Cummings and Robert Frost and Emily Dickinson. I mean, he shared all of that with me. And I too became an English major. And so oftentimes I understand that as a coach and as a sports commentator and a cancer advocate, he belongs to everybody, especially the V Foundation and the work that they're doing. But to me, my dad will always be a poet at heart. That's who he
Wow.
was. And it was just, I have a little poetry book that he gave me that's love sonnets. And it just sits on my dresser. And it's one of my favorite things because a lot of people don't know that about him.
I love that. That is so cool. That is so cool. Very neat. Is what do you do? Is your full-time work with the foundation?
It is not
Okay.
actually. I was a part of the foundation in its formative years. So I just have to
Mhm.
share the way that all of this was born. My dad had 10 months to live when he was diagnosed. And he had always been surrounded by a team and always had a bold vision in his life, which was to win a national championship. And so I can recall him coming home after his diagnosis, and I thought, oh gosh, he's going to explode. I've seen him after a tough loss. He's certainly passionate. And for the first time and that I had seen, he got really quiet and he took out a legal yellow notepad at his desk and he wrote down one final vision, find a cure for cancer. And he went about assembling a team. So he asked a lot of the individuals on our board were people that he asked over 30 years ago to
Wow.
help him. So he asked people from business and sports and entertainment and medicine. And he was the one who established our funding process as well. He wanted to fund early stage research that wasn't getting the big dollars
Yeah.
yet. And so I remember he said, I love an underdog, so I want to fund that early young researcher that's hungry and just working so hard and needs to be supported. So all of this was born from his ideas. And that's what I find so amazing is the story behind it, that he taught me that we all have to have a bold vision and that we also have to assemble a team. The bigger your vision, he couldn't win a national championship on his own, and he couldn't form a cancer foundation without ESPN and the board and the doctors. So in the first couple of years, we had like 2 employees and I was one of them. And so
Amazing.
I just was so moved. I wanted to help out. I was a middle school teacher. So I left and just basically worked at the V Foundation. And then once I had children, my second son has special
Mhm.
needs. And so I really felt like I had to step back. And then, of course, with my own diagnosis, I had that on top of it. And I felt like for a while it would be too difficult to work day in and day out just in that
Yeah.
environment. And so luckily my family's always been involved. The headquarters are here where we
Yeah.
live, and we've been so fortunate to have this team and these individuals. And so we're very active, but I no longer work there day in and day out. But as a motivational speaker, I share my dad's story every day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Talk with me about, I mean, your diagnosis. I love celebrating 20 years out. It's so, and I'll tell you, I mean, my husband 4 years ago went through treatment for stage 4 lymphoma, and my dad is a stage 4 melanoma survivor. And I say, if he had gotten that diagnosis even 2 years before he did, I mean, like when we think about the research, when we think about what your dad's message was at the end, it's because of course, the culmination of many years of research, but I know someone who got my dad's same exact diagnosis just a few years prior who lived only months past that. So, but like, it's amazing that when you talk about being 20 years away, 20 years past the experience, talk to me if you would, Jamie. I'm always really passionate about just reminding listeners, I mean, breast cancer is one of the, what was it breast cancer that you went through? Yep. And I try to remind our audience, like, breast cancer is one of those few cancers that we can screen for. Talk to me about, what your symptoms were or how it was discovered.
Yeah, this is all a miracle, because when my dad was diagnosed, again, we didn't even know what type of cancer it was or where it originated. And so a lot of the medicine that he was getting in the treatment had been around for, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And that really stuck with him. And he thought, here I am sitting across from a doctor that's giving me medicine that's been around forever, or a treatment plan, that there was nothing new. And so he was really given no hope. The gene, the BRCA2 gene, had not even been discovered yet.
Yeah.
So nobody came to us and said, hey, listen, your husband's so young, your father's so young, we really think this is genetic. And so we did not have any warnings. My sisters and I were not screening or doing anything differently. We just felt like this had been an anomaly. And so I was really fortunate, because I was only 33. I had not had a mammogram yet. And I felt my lump myself.
Wow.
And it was about 1 centimeter. And I touched it and I felt that it was there. And when I went to my OBGYN, she said, I think it's hormonal, you're young. And she didn't even ask about my medical history. She didn't ask, like, do you have breast cancer in your family? Nothing. Because she just was like, this is nothing. It probably has to do with hormones. So I called my dad's oncologist, who was on our board at the Duke Cancer Center, and said, what do you think? And I was so fortunate, because I was able to get in, and they did an ultrasound right away. They knew, like, they did a biopsy, and then it was amazing, because the doctor that was the oncologist that was head of genetic breast cancer research and treatment, had been a fellow at the time my dad was getting treatment at the same hospital, and had learned about his cancer. So how fortunate I was 13 years after my dad's passing, that this oncologist said, wait a minute, there's something going on here. And he was the one that asked and said, you need to do genetic testing. So I was scheduled for a lumpectomy, radiation, chemotherapy. I would not be sitting here today if that had been my course of treatment. And so, because of them knowing about the gene and linking all of that to my family history, I'm here. I was able to survive, and so it's a lot of me walking in my dad's footsteps that he left behind. He had assembled a team. He had a game plan for future survivors. And as you mentioned, I was in the audience when he gave his last speech, and without any preparation or notes or a teleprompter, he said prophetically, the V Foundation research may not save my life. It may save my
I
children's lives.
heard
It may
that
save
this
someone
morning. You just
you
gave me
love.
goosebumps. Yes.
We need your help. I need your help. We need money for research. It may not save my life. It may save my children's lives. It may save someone you love.
Yeah. And I always thought he was saying that to the
Yes.
public and to other people, but I didn't recognize that I was the someone he loved. And so it really changed my attitude and the way in which I was treated, because I thought to myself, what would he have done with one more year, with 2 more years, 3 more years? And here I was given the opportunity to survive. I sat across from a doctor and he said, "You're going to beat this." And that wasn't my dad's experience. So I was very fortunate.
Wow. And remind me, please, that did you say that was that 13 years after he had passed? It strikes me as you speak. I mean, I had a good sense that you probably were surrounded with a lot of good contacts, as well loved and revered as your dad was, and as passionate as he was about the cause at the end of his life. I have said in the case of both my dad and my husband who happens to be an MD, when he started experiencing symptoms, he thought first that it was something GI related, esophageal. He was having like a lot of acid reflux. And then I think it was in 2020, COVID was happening. And we said, we've been holed up. Let's go away for his birthday. And we went horseback riding and he felt a weird pain, like around his shoulder blade. Months go by, like 3-4 months go by. His PCP is treating him for severe acid reflux and stuff. And his best friends who he grew up with, and they went through training together. They came to visit us for a guys' weekend one weekend. And my husband and I, we weren't married yet. We were living separately, but they came over to my house one night and I made them all dinner, and they said to me, "Chrissy, he needs a CT scan. Like, this is not monkeying around. Something's going on." And he would always say, like, he would eat a little bit and he would feel really full really fast. So he pushed with his PCP to get that CT scan. Immediately, they could see that he had a mass in his abdomen, and it was like softball sized, I think. In the case of my dad too, Jamie, I mean, we had a close family friend. I always praise her. Also, they're Duke fans in their family. Dr. Lisa Finksler, she is a dermatologist in my hometown. She and my brother grew up, went through all of school together, and she looked at my dad, and a very close colleague of hers it's like, I feel sad sometimes and I need to kind of reframe the way I'm thinking about this or the way I'm about to say it, but you have to know somebody in medicine sometimes. And it makes me sad, but I guess the positive way to spin that is that you have to be resourceful, no matter if you don't have physicians around you in your life. Like, you have to be resourceful, because we've had a friend of my mom, her stepdad was sick, and they reach out to my husband and just kind of soundboard with him, and he'll say, "Yes, push for this test." So I don't know. I always feel like I've not really heard that conversation discussed. It's such a blessing when you have those people in your back pocket, when you have those people in your corner in life. Not everybody has that, but if you can try to find a way, reach out, because I'll tell you, people like my husband or people like Dr. Lisa, our close dermatologist friend, like they would help anybody. It doesn't matter if it's 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, they would take that call of a friend of a friend of a friend. So
I think we really have to, I always say this when I speak to women, is you have to trust your instincts.
Yeah.
Because I really do feel, even now being a cancer survivor, I'll go to the doctor and they won't necessarily do a full scope of all of my history, and they'll just treat a symptom. And so, as you said, you really have to trust your instincts and know something's not right. And I need to push, and I need to go to that next the next person and the next connection. And you'll find that, as you said, although you have to know somebody, but you'll find oftentimes in your small circle, there may have been someone, just as you and I are talking, who's experienced something similar. Their loved one has faced cancer, and unfortunately it's so prevalent. And so I think that that's really important to use those resources and really push.
Yeah.
Don't just settle with you're okay kind of thing, because
it's so true.
And also to know your genetic history. Really, it's a small number of individuals with breast cancer that have a genetic mutation. It's like 1 in 400 that are diagnosed. So it's not overly prevalent, and it's not that's where they go first, your oncologist. And so even with my background, but as we sat down and kind of mapped out, I had many relatives who had been survivors of breast cancer, but they were much older. They were in their 70s or later in life. So it wasn't until my dad developed it so early that we thought
that it kind of
maybe this is
flagged something interesting. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about, that's where I was going to take the conversation next, where BRCA comes into play, or at what point. Amazing, right? That this oncologist that you happen to have a connection to was specializing in sort of genetic types of cancers. I guess I did not realize that, like, BRCA, the discovery of that gene is maybe not even 20 years old, huh?
Yes. And it really, I feel like it didn't become well known until Angelina Jolie and Christina Applegate. There were some women who were very well known, and they shared that. So I think that was really important. It's important for people to share their experience so that others can learn. But it really, you have to know your history and share that with your doctor, because as I said, that's not going to be their first question as far as they're going to be treating you. And so I think, and again, I'm 20 years past my diagnosis. It's much more looked at now, especially even with certain ethnicities.
Interesting.
Because there are certain ethnicities that it's more common to have a genetic component. But why it's important is because it changes the treatment. It's not as if you have the gene, your cancer is going to be more aggressive, or it's you should be gloom and doom. But what happens is you are more at risk for other forms of cancer. And so it's really important to know that, so that it changes your treatment. And so, as I said, mine changed drastically, and I was able to do some things to protect myself from ovarian cancer, colon cancer, skin cancer. So I have to actually go and get more exams. And so had I not known I had this gene, as I said, I would have just done the basic protocol. And so it's really important to make sure that you know your history and you present it to the doctor, because that may not be the first thing that they ask you.
That's you're so right. It was when Angelina, I think she wrote an op-ed or something like that. And when she really came out and said that I think she'd had the double mastectomy, and it did help to put it on the radar. That's so interesting. Can I ask, so the breast cancer cases that had preceded in your family, were they primarily on your dad's side, would you say?
All of them were. So we definitely, we noticed right away as we kind of drew that tree that they all had, and not all of them were breast cancer, but my dad had 2 first cousins women that had breast cancer.
Amazing.
And so it came through my grandmother. I mean, you can even be that specific with it, that it was my grandmother. And interestingly enough, again, if there is genetic components in your family, it does not mean that you're necessarily going to inherit the gene. My dad was the only child. He has two brothers, so there's 3 of them. He was the only one. I have 2 sisters, and I was the only one. So again, it's not as if you have a genetic component in your family, you just need to be a little bit on guard, but it doesn't mean you're 100% going to get the gene. So I think that's important too, that people aren't so fearful that they think, oh my gosh, it's a definite. But get tested. So if you have one of the genetic predispositions.
Can I ask, and I don't mean to air the business of both your sisters, but did they sort of take this information in and take action based on it?
Yes, both of them were tested immediately at the same time that I was. My younger sister had not had children yet. And so that was really important for her to know.
Yes.
Because she thought, I need to know this if this is going to change my life. And absolutely, because I was told I needed to have a hysterectomy pretty early. And so I had the double mastectomy, I had a hysterectomy, I went through treatment. So it really changed my whole world as a woman, as a young person. I was, again, only 33. I had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So my older sister had young children. So my mom even got tested, even though we knew that it wasn't, but everybody was just like, let's do this. Yeah. So we did, just to make sure that possibly she wasn't the carrier, because we didn't know at that point until the test went through. So yeah, I definitely, and I have to be honest, I was very angry because I felt like I was a good daughter and I had been there for my dad at the end. And why was I the one that inherited this gene? And I felt as if my father had left me when I needed him most. And so that was a really tough time for me. And I really had to work through that relationship with my dad and understand that he had not left me. In fact, in his last months, he had given me the greatest gift that he could. And he could have spent those last 10 months just focusing on himself, but he wanted to do something greater for those people affected by cancer. And so as a daughter, I'm so proud of the V Foundation, but as a cancer survivor, I am just so impressed by what he was able to start and put in motion and the work that they're doing now. So it is extraordinary.
It really is. Talk to me about, again, I'm thinking of friends in my own life, family friends who we grew up with. We went to I'm from a small town. We went to Catholic school our whole lives, and it was a very tight knit community. And when you walk life with people for all those years, like I'm thinking of one family in particular who both parents have passed away. One who in an accident, unfortunately, and then the other from a very severe type of cancer. And they have this family foundation. Talk to me a little bit, if you would, about how, and you guys, I mean, the V Foundation, it's still like, that was one of the first things my brother said to me. He's like, yeah, the V Foundation. And of course, like I said, when I mentioned, like, do you know who Jimmy Valvano was? He was like, oh my God, like, yeah. And you still have so many high profile figures who step up and act as spokespeople on the foundation's behalf. What a beautiful way for someone to live on. But talk to me about that.
Yeah. Yes. It's amazing. I mean, we really did not think it would last as long as it has. We thought, oh, it'll be a couple of years, because there are so many charities that are started and they all have good intentions, but it's hard.
It's a lot to start a charity. Work and a lot of smarts, like a lot of strategy and the connections, the networking, and Yes.
So really, I attribute the early success completely to ESPN. I just feel like that when Dad was sick, I traveled with him and I learned what a community that was. The sports community is so supportive anyway, but even smaller, ESPN headquarters are in Bristol, Connecticut, and there's really nothing else there around that area. So I would travel with him and I would just see his colleagues and how much they loved him and the community. So really the foundation for our organization was ESPN and the support, and them showing the speech every year and really promoting it. And as you said, you have high level individuals that are very successful that were on our board. My dad asked Dick Vitale, who was his fellow commentator. He asked Mike Krzyzewski, who coached against him. He asked his oncologist to be on the scientific review committee. And these are people that, you know, he spoke for the Washington Speakers Bureau, and the person who created that is on our board as well. So these people that had just walked with him now are raising money for us. They are so committed. And because of them, we are a 5-star charity, and that's rated every year. But what is astounding to me is when you give $1 to the V Foundation, 100% goes to research. They were able in the early years to create an endowment that kept the operations going. So now 100%. And we have these scholars all over the country that are doing research who have no idea who Jim Valvano is at all. They have to be educated when they get the grant, because they're thinking, if they're not basketball fans, what is this V Foundation? But they are just, they know the V Foundation, they know the reputation that we have. And so really, it's just beautiful because it is a team. It is a family. It's just how my dad would have designed it. That it's just amazing. Dick Vitale just had an event in Sarasota, Florida, where he raised millions of dollars. I think $4 million for pediatric research. And in August, Coach K will have an event for us in Napa Valley. We've donated nearly $400 million to researchers. We don't build buildings. We don't put statues up of my dad. That's not what we're about. It's all about the research.
Goodness.
And I'm so proud, because if you give money often to charity, you're not quite sure what the purpose is, because so many things that charities are trying to do, which I'm so thankful for. I mean, we need all of those organizations, but I just love that they've carried on my dad's spirit and his wishes, and that is research, because that's where we're going to save lives. And it is just, a day doesn't go by that I don't meet somebody who tells me a story about a personal struggle they were going through, and how during March Madness, they saw the vision of my dad running around the court, or they watched the ESPY speech. And they just tell me what it did for them. And I'm blown away. I'm blown away by the legacy that he's left behind. And so it's so powerful. I pinch myself.
I'm sure.
It's amazing.
I'm sure. I mean, and the fact that you continue to, whenever the team pitched me with, I'm like, this podcast is so new. I don't even know if anybody's going to want to be on it yet. But when they reached out to me, I was just like, oh my gosh, I would be so honored. And then you are keeping the conversation going, and it's so beautiful. Have you found, I mean, I can appreciate, I mean, in a way, it's such a beautiful, me as somebody who writes and ghostwrites memoirs, like, in a way, it's really profound that it was you and your family who received that diagnosis, and you've really made meaning out of that. And are you still actively kind of doing this work and wanting to kind of just keep it on women's radars?
Yeah. You know, it's evolved.
Yeah.
I'm not my dad. And so in the beginning, people wanted me to be just like him. And especially in the community that we live in, they're just so loving. And they would come up to me and just send me notes and things and say, don't give up, don't ever give up. And it was daunting for me, because I'm not my dad. And I just didn't have that strength and that courage, and didn't necessarily want to share everything publicly. And so I think for me, it's been an evolution where I needed to do some aging and growing and get a little bit older, because I was only 33, and raise my children. And really now I serve on the board of advisors for the Duke Cancer Institute. I know a lot more. I've been educated. And yes, I am super passionate about using my story to not only share about health concerns we as women are dealing with, and how we have to advocate, and the fact that we wear so many hats, and we have to make sure we make time for ourselves, because it's very interesting. My dad developed his cancer 3 years after he suffered a really huge kind of tragedy blow in his life. And I developed my cancer 3 years after I learned about my son being diagnosed with, he had had a stroke when I was pregnant with him. And so I look at those things and I also say, like, what part does stress play? What part does just what we were going through in our lives? And so I really want to talk to women and let them know how important it is to take care of ourselves, to be advocates for our health, to not miss those appointments, make sure, even people in my own family will say I'm overdue for my mammogram. And I'm like, really? Come on now. Like, it's just, we can get so busy and so involved that we forget. And so I really, especially when another woman is diagnosed that I hear about in our community, I really like to reach out as a survivor to give them hope. Oftentimes we only hear about people who don't make it, or you go on the internet and see things that scare you and you look at percentages and all of this stuff I did. And there was one woman who reached out to me after I was diagnosed who was a 12-year survivor. And she became kind of like my North Star. Wow. Whenever I was scared, she made it. She's a grandmother. And so I think that that's really what I'm passionate about, is letting people know that you can survive, you can thrive. And oftentimes the very things you think are going to destroy you are actually what makes you who you are.
Yes.
And I am a product of caring for my dad, seeing what he went through. Although it was a tragedy, it has just blessed me richly. Watching my son navigate and raising a child with special needs is very challenging. I thought I would never be okay with it, and it has turned into a celebration and a complete change in who I am as a parent and as a mother. And then again, my own diagnosis has brought a deeper meaning to my existence and has helped me connect with individuals on a level I would have never been able to had I not walked this path myself.
Right.
So again, no matter what people are facing that are listening to us today, I want them to know that that's not the end of a story. It's the beginning. And it takes time. It takes time to heal. So don't think you have to be some sort of cancer warrior or be somebody who is encouraging other people. There's a time to heal and to grieve and to ask for help and to kind of redefine who you are. You are not a disease or a gene or a diagnosis. That's just part of who you are. So I really want women to know that it's not going to rob you of the life that you were meant to have.
I love that. And I love the point also that you made about stress and listening to our bodies first. I recently, I'm thankful I have not experienced any serious diagnosis, but I'll share. I'm in my 40s and I've had 2 pregnancy losses. These were my first 2 pregnancies ever. I didn't meet my husband until I was almost 39, and he has 3 grown kids who are very healthy and just like living wonderful lives. But I said to him on our 3rd date, I was like, you need to know, like, motherhood is very, very important to me. So then we went through his cancer. So that kind of delayed and so we're kind of journeying through what we hope is going to be a happy outcome. But I took several weeks off of work to say, I need to create this space for myself. And I really need to declare that I'm putting my health first right now. I guess I'm fortunate. I remember when we were going through my husband's treatments, and I remember thinking, and I'm sure a lot of families and cancer patients feel the same way, I wish we could just pause everything else in life. Like the electricity bill still needs to get paid, and like we still got to go to work, but we got to show up to treatments. But it's like, I guess I'm grateful that work was kind of the only thing that I had to I'm hitting pause on this. And it's okay sometimes to say, I'm taking time for my body. It's not even necessarily for me. It's like, it's for my body. And I'm at a stage, I'm 45 now. Like this is the window's closing. So we got to give this the best chance that we can. Yeah. So
one of the things, thank you for sharing that with me, because that is, what I want to say is that is a lot. And the other thing we do as women is try to minimize what we're going through. And then other people will say, it's going to get better, or you should feel fortunate that your husband is a survivor, and somehow downplay or negate what it takes to survive some of these things. And so I'm just proud of you for recognizing that it's something you had to do yourself, because it's not often that somebody else, whether it's well-meaning, loving people, family and friends, but what we want to normally do is we think to be supportive and to encourage is to push people out of their sadness or their grief and say, it's going to be okay. It's going to get better. And I just found that didn't work for me. It did not work for me to just have a stiff upper lip and try to make other people more comfortable. If I needed to cry, I cried. If I needed to be angry, curse, whatever I needed to do, I did. And other than protecting my children, I felt like nobody else needs my protection. Like this is what it feels like. Because at 33, none of my friends or my group of people they didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to talk about.
Like we have not been through enough life at that point, and they wish you well, but like there's no way they can get it right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I went through menopause so early because I had a hysterectomy. And now all my friends who are in their 50s are like, oh my gosh, so they're complaining. And I'm like, listen, I had to do it in like my late 30s. So just be quiet about it. So again, we have to give other people grace, but we also have to understand that it's okay to speak our truth and we don't want to make people uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And so, so I will share that with sometimes with people in a kind way. And so what you've experienced, it is not something you just can flip a switch and just be better.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't happen that way.
Exactly. I don't want to keep you much longer. Tell me what are you working on now? What's something that's energizing you right now?
Oh, honestly, I am so fortunate. I'm the luckiest person, I feel, because I work with the Washington Speakers Bureau, and I do as well as my own speeches. And I get to work with people in pharmaceuticals, in medicine, in accounting. I laugh because I recently was hired by a Women in Trucking event, and I thought, never driven a truck.
That's so cool.
But I love women events. It was so cool. So my story isn't one just about medicine or about cancer, but it's about the full scope of basically that we all are ordinary people, but as my dad used to say, we can experience extraordinary lives. And so my dad taught me that when you have that bold vision, when you unite a team around you, and when you persevere, that don't give up, don't ever give up attitude that he had, that you can accomplish anything. And over the past 20 years, I've done things that I never imagined that I would have had the opportunity to do. And I'm getting ready to speak at a commencement speech next week. And it's just been so gratifying for me to recognize that each of us has a story. I mean, anyone can get up and share their story, and just what you shared with me today is so inspiring. And so it's really important for me to use my voice and to share my own personal experience, to give hope to others that are facing some sort of challenge in their life. Doesn't have to be physical, but to say, what is your purpose in life, and what path are you meant to follow that's only for you? And my dad showed me that in order to discover our purpose, we have to know what we're passionate about. For him, it was basketball. But we have to know what our divine gifts are as well. And when you combine those two things, I think that kind of reveals your purpose. And I'm somebody who is living their purpose. And that's what I'm just so blessed to do. I can't even imagine. So I still go to all the events and support the V Foundation. I share my dad's story and work with ESPN and other organizations. I'm involved in the Special Olympics because I have a son with special needs, and I'm passionate
Love that.
about that. So again, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to, whenever I'm on a stage, I picture my dad beside me. And I know that he is cheering me on. I just know he's so proud of me. In fact, I'll say it. I'll be like, thank you, Dad. You're so proud of me. And I'm just so lucky that I kind of am traveling with him right now. I'm walking in his footsteps. I'm sharing his story, and that my ending is different because of the life that he lived. And so that's just the powerful message I want to send to everybody is, with every single step you take, you're leaving a lasting legacy for the people that are coming behind you. And so it's just living with intention, sharing our stories, loving other people, and just that perseverance. And people say, well, how do you persevere when you deal with something so devastating? And the way that I've done it and the way my dad did it is, you look at what you're trying to accomplish. You don't change your vision because of ever-changing circumstances around you. You got to continue along that path. My dad lived the same way, whether he was winning a national championship and celebrating or facing terminal cancer. And the second thing that helps you persevere is that team, as you talked about, the community, the team, the foundation. The bigger what you're trying to accomplish is, the more people you need to reach out to and say, can you use your gifts and talents to help me get to where I want to be in life? And so I have boldly asked people for help in every area of my life. And that's what's enabled me to survive and thrive. It's not my strength, my wisdom, my expertise. No, none of that. I actually depend on so many people to help me each and every day, and I wouldn't be here without them.
Oh my gosh. But I think it's like, it takes a strength to let in that, you call it help, but that support, I say to my team at work, I say, asking questions is a skill. To ask the questions, or just to ask for help, like that takes strength. That's so awesome. This conversation has been like better than you gave me goosebumps 4 times, Jamie. I mean, oh my gosh.
Well, I love the connection because you were authentic and vulnerable. I was able to do so. And so that's what's really a gift to me. So
Thank you. We have got to keep in touch. I'm like, when is this Napa event? That's 38 minutes up the road from us.
And we would love for you to come. It is an amazing event. I wish you nothing but the best. And I know this conversation is going to keep going.
I would love it. Let's keep in touch. That would be awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. I look forward to seeing our time together.
Yes. Thanks, Jamie.
We'll talk
Take care.
soon.